Hello and welcome to the most schismatic podcast on the internet. We're all about...
Today's podcast is sponsored by Rail Shatter Lemons.
Shatter those lemons.
Rail Shatter Lemons. Do you like clicking on your phone repeatedly? Is this fun? What if you could spend real money on absolutely nothing?
That would be idyllic.
Well, now you can with Rave Shadow Legions.
Legumes.
Rate Shadow Legumes. Rate Shadow Legumes.
So we're going to be talking about schism today, since we are schismatic by nature, since, we... since all trads are.
Speak for yourself.
But
you're the one in schism. I am the true church right here.
Church.
I'm on with...
You're the visible church.
I'm the visible. I'm with the visible church.
Yeah. I'm part of I like the invisible church, the spooky, mysterious.
You would,
church.
ex-Lutheran.
Just float. Visible.
Ghost church. What's the sound of that clocking in the halls? Oh.
No, but actually the
LCMS
who
were part of the elect in the Middle Ages.
The elect
secretly.
Yeah. The LCMS.
We're buying indulgences from those evil monks.
The Missouri Synod think that they are the visible church. So they think that, and then all the other, there's all these other Christians who are part of the invisible church, who are true Christians.
Mm-hmm. But the visible church is the Missouri Synod, right?
The Missouri Synod, yes.
Yeah.
Of course. They're the ones.
The joy of shame and the shame of joy.
Yeah, because our Lord, wanted to upend his seat in Rome for St. Louis. Because he's a blues fan. St. Louis Blues.
Well, you see, when there were some worldly corruptions in the church in the 16th century, so naturally, a fat, adulterous, and possibly murderous bad monk.
Oh, you mean like with
the
duel?
Solution to the problem is this guy who runs away from his monastery and decides that he likes to pretend to be a knight jousting in a castle.
It's like,
what about that child support, Luther?
Gotta pay that alimony. We're still waiting for that, Luther. For all your forgotten children who are floating around in Missouri. In Missouri.
They all moved.
All right.
To the New Zion.
The New Zion of Missouri. There's a lot of bad news about...
No, there isn't. You made that up.
Stuff. Yeah, like there's...
What? No. Why? What?
Yeah, so like in Ohio, there was a conviction of like sexual abuse of a priest who's like convicted with sex trafficking. That's not very good. What else is there? There is... so Bolivia... this is great. This bishop says, in wake of clerical pederasty scandal in Bolivia, the bishop says he favors optional celibacy for priests.
Exactly. The solution is for them to get married so that it's just their own children.
It's a bit of a hot take.
Right? That's basically what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Just like have married pedophiles who, yeah, just, oh, wow. Yeah, basically.
Well, this was pointed out by others who I'm stealing the idea from because I think they're clever and I'm not going to attribute
Yeah.
it to them. But it was pointed out by others that either you believe that if they're an abusive person they should get married, which is actually like a like a problem for a
Yeah.
marriage, like canonically, if they're like they've got this problem or they're attracted to minors or they're just a generally abusive person, like sexually abusive person, like they shouldn't be married. They should be in a prison,
Yeah.
not
Oakland
any of
Diocese
those
files
things.
for bankruptcy following sexual abuse lawsuits. Yeah. So it's not looking good. But in the positive news, Barbie has created a monumental Down syndrome Barbie doll. So wonderful. This is, Catholic news at its finest. Because people with Down syndrome get aborted, and so now that we have a Down syndrome Barbie, maybe they won't.
I mean, I don't know. You do what you want. If you sell children's toys that aren't like it's not like it's like I think Barbies in general are kind of a grotesque children's toy. Supposedly, the original ones were based off of something less than wholesome. But
Oh, really? So Pope Francis met with President Zelensky of
yeah,
Ukraine. Why is he wearing like a sweater?
world
That's like
tour because that's his
I'm
look.
underdressed
That's his
today. Like
official
it's
like
hot.
war look.
His war look. Okay, I get it.
No, that's his war look. He's the black sweater and got the black sweater and the green like cargo pants.
I thought he's
That's the
supposed to wear.
Zelensky look.
I thought he was supposed to wear the track pants. Oh no, that'd be too Russian. If
Yeah.
you wear the track pants, yeah.
No,
So
he's in the like I'm in the trenches with you guys. Woo, look.
that's lame. Super lame. Just wear a suit, man. Like,
I mean, to be fair,
be normal.
he's an elected official. He's dressed at the level of dignity that his office actually possesses. So I fail to see what the problem actually is here, John. He's not like nobility. He doesn't have to dress nicely.
Well, I mean, but it's not just for his office; it's for the person who he's being summoned to as well. I mean, to be like me wearing my current outfit in front of the king.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah.
But he's also an elected official, so we expect less.
Lower
right?
the bar.
Yeah, well, the bar is really low, right? Like.
Yep. Is there any other news that's worth looking at? There's some. I don't know if this is really worth looking at. This bishop. I didn't know about this. There's like this bishop's like anti-racism committee. Which just sounds very tawdry. And
We're gonna get them, boys. We're gonna solve racism.
Stop the racism. Yeah, all by ourselves. We'll do it because we have so much clout in society. We have so much sway on the popular culture.
Don't be racist. I am a bishop.
Oh, should I pull up that? Should I pull up?
Yeah, just the short one.
Okay.
Don't pull up the full thing. It's on.
What's the?
I mean, just look up. Don't be racist. I am a building. I
got it. Yeah, I found the clip. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Just so people know what we're actually talking about.
Don't be racist. I am a building.
There you go.
Yeah, it is about the same level of reaction. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of fits. Okay, so we'll move on to our main topic then, which is talking about church authority. Actually, there's a good like little thing that we can kind of watch by our same favorite Catholic YouTuber, Michael Lofton, and we can kind of go from there. That can be kind of like a launch point here. So here we go. So
and continues to resist the church and says, no, Pope Francis is still a heretic, or no, Vatican II is still heretical. No, you actually have to be a card-carrying Catholic, a formal Catholic, in order to be saved. Outside of that, blah, 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 blah. You're in dissent from the Catholic magisterium. You're guilty of doing the very thing that you're accusing others of doing. And you're in the very same danger that you're worried others are in. It's very dangerous stuff. I call everyone to humbly assent to the Catholic Church, assent to the teaching authority of Jesus. Stop trying to interpret dogma on your own. Look to what the church says. Try to understand its dogmas in the way that it understands its own dogmas and assent to it. But a person
so he's worried about other people worrying about them, about their worries about other people's faith. Right? Is that right? I think that's what he's saying.
There's a small. It's an interesting kind of like pivot. There's a small amount of people who are obsessed about that sort of thing, like other
Right.
people, like the gentleman who attempted to get you to wear St. Joseph's belt.
Right, yeah.
Really worried about you.
I'm worried about your mission.
You can tell that story in a minute because it's fantastic. But then there's a lot of people who are just kind of worried about, like, they have children.
Right.
And they're worried about them.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're worried about themselves because they can feel their sanity falling out. And then they read things. Then Pope Francis quotes someone like St. Vincent of Lerins. And then they go and look up what St. Vincent of Lerins actually says. And it's the literal opposite of his citation.
When did that happen?
That happened. That was a famous bit a while ago. He quoted St. Vincent of Lerins about how the church must change. It's like that bit about the development of doctrine is wedged in between how the things that the church has already said cannot be changed. It's very clear from the entire commonatory, which I've read, that what he means is more things can be revealed which don't contradict the previous things.
So, but we could say that Pope Francis was implying that in the way that he was saying that in his understanding of development.
He definitely was not.
Well, but you could say he could be saying like that. He could be calling for more legitimate development or something. That's kind of the.
If I remember correctly, it wasn't so much. I wouldn't call some of this stuff legitimate development.
Oh, but James, that's your interpretation, and you're falling into the edge of schism by saying that.
I'm following into the edge of schism, and I'm hanging out on it with you. I'm on the edge, the edge, the edge.
I really want to clip that. That's great.
I'm on the edge of schism. Some good old Lady Gaga for you.
I think she's pretty well plunged into schism at this stage. So she is Catholic, actually. Lady Gaga. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's.
Is it like a formal schism, or is she just going around talking about like inappropriate things and saying stupid things?
Yeah,
I suppose there's like the nun outfit. That's like sacrilege.
That's, pretty sacrilegious. Yeah, it's not. I guess it's not technically schism.
There's some blasphemy There's some like
Yeah, well, she's definitely
blasphemy
contributing
adjacent
to
things anyway.
scandal and moral corruption and rot.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know
I
if
don't.
she's
That's not schism. That's not schism. That's just
yeah,
like
she's not necessarily
being a crappy person isn't going into schism.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. So we have to come up with a very sort of precise definition of what schism is, and that's I think what I wanted to do with this episode. So I'll share my screen here again, and we can look at this video because this is what the kind of the central content that I wanted to discuss here. So here we go. No. Oh my god. Okay, I'm getting some resolution problems here. Okay, there we go.
Their errors.
Oh no, that's right at the end. Okay, I gotta go back.
We're not watching this whole thing.
Yeah, no, yeah. We don't have to watch the whole thing. I'll skip ahead a little.
Hey
bit.
everybody, welcome back to Reason and Theology on a Monday. I want to talk about a Catholic philosopher who seemingly is ready to go into schism over a particular form of the Roman Missal. If his particular form of the Roman Missal gets
He's ready to go.
It's ready.
he says, you know what? We're going into schism. Pretty sad to see this, although
Now,
expected.
John, would be a good time to cue the clip.
Yeah, I think so too. We just got to, just got to do this thing that he's telling us to do, which is to.
No, not that clip. But this.
No,
please
no,
go
that clip?
ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I was referring to the Muppet Treasure Island clip.
E-C-T, respect authority, O-B-E-Y. Obey authority, come on. Respect authority, come on. Obey authority, come on.
All right, that's enough. Enough authority.
It's no Lady Gaga.
Authority dance. Yeah, no. What clip were you referring to?
The Red Hot Gates of Hell.
The what?
Ah!
Oh!
Come on!
Oh, the red hot gates of hell are creeping open. Satan is hating his pokers for you, you blasphemous heathens.
Yeah, that's all I could think of when he's on the edge of schism. Like real serious too. Like a Catholic philosopher on the edge of schism. More at 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and before, while we're on the subject of this YouTuber, we want to remind you to please like and subscribe. That would be very important.
The most charitable thing we've ever done.
Yeah. Okay, but anyways, going back to our friend here,
The lofty theologian.
the lofty theologian.
I've been saying this for quite a while now. I mean, there are many radical traditionalists who value a particular form of the Roman rite and a particular missal of the Roman rite more than they value.
I would like
communion
to say that good for him for buying a collared shirt. He looks like this is a serious topic.
Yeah.
It's serious business to accuse someone in a public forum of schism. And so he actually decided to wear something kind of appropriate for
he's got the little color shirt instead of the t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, they're missing.
He's all grown up.
Trees. They value something that is more accidental in nature over the things that are substantial in nature, to the point that they're willing to go into schism from Christ's church to preserve a particular form of the liturgy that is not even to the essence or substance.
Yeah, well, let's see if he actually says
hearing the audio.
Because he's just
all right. Let's.
He just keeps saying the same thing. But
mentioning fruits. In the words once again of Michael Charlier, quote, if Francis does attempt to completely displace the authentic Roman rite from the Church of Rome, and if one or more successors should follow him in this, the question will arise sooner rather than later for all who know that this rite cannot and must not be abandoned. as to how they are to accomplish the maintenance of an independent right church, even if this should bring great difficulties, distress of conscience, and the slander of being schismatics. The recognition of such a church of the right of Pope St. Gregory by the Pope of Rome will then follow someday. Perhaps a future Gregory the 17th is already a seminarian of a faithful community. Unquote. This is what it looks like today to rely on divine providence, not to throw away the faith or its highest and noblest expressions because a pope or a bishop tells us to, owing to his hatred of the past, which stands in judgment over our modern vices and errors, but rather to hold fast to all that is true, good, beautiful, and holy, relying on God to deliver us from our enemies, to make straight our paths, to prosper the work of our hands. When we do.
All right. So you get the point. I'm going to
Moral outrage.
Yes.
All of Christendom was in moral outrage.
So it was.
What? So what are you upset about in that? That was so the thing he was citing wasn't him, first of all.
Yeah.
You could tell because he said someone else was saying this, and then at the end he said, so far, someone else said that. So he wasn't suggesting in his talk that that's what was going on. He was saying that it's such a problem that it's actually causing people to say such a thing.
We can get. Oh, yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so unless there's more to this that I'm missing, he didn't say that first part that you just played. Like that wasn't him.
Yeah, but the independent right. That's what I was wondering too. It's like,
but that was a citation of someone else.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and then everything he was saying. Yeah, the Pope can't just show up and be like, "What up, guys? If you're in an adulterous relationship, hit the communion line." Like that's not. No, that's ultra vires. You can't tell people if they're in adultery that they can receive communion with a kind of confession.
Yeah,
that's silly. That's a silly thing.
Yeah, no, because basically the whole video he talks about what's problematic with the first part and how it's like sort of like an Eastern Orthodox ecclesiology. Because he used to be Eastern Orthodox.
Unless there was something before that, but he just hit play. Unless there was something before that, that was someone else he was talking about.
Yeah, I know. That's why. That's what I was.
What's up?
Well, play it again and then offer some commentary, but I wanted to play it all the way through the first time. You get the point. What we just heard from Kwasniewski is Eastern Orthodox ecclesiology, which is not shocking since we've already known that Peter Kwasniewski has embraced Eastern Orthodox ecclesiology. I remember a few years ago, Eric Ibarra asked him a question on Facebook and just kind of presented a quote to him. And he was like, well, what do you think about this? And he presented a quote to him of an Eastern Orthodox expressing the Eastern Orthodox view of the papacy, which is not the Catholic view of the papacy. And he didn't tell him who wrote it. But Kwasniewski was like, yeah, I agree with that. I'm 100% on board with it. And then he revealed to him, oh, by the way, that was actually an Eastern Orthodox expression.
What was the quote?
He doesn't even
I want the quote. What was the quote? What's the quote? The Eastern Orthodox can say things that are right. What's the quote?
Yeah, I know. Just, it's so frustrating. Because it's just like, I mean, the whole sort of like bizarre paradigm about this channel is that he's always trying to sort of like create this like avenue for a charitable sort of discussion, but then he sort of like takes on these opponents in sort of like the most sort of seemingly uncharitable way, or like at least sort of
straw manning. It's called straw manning.
Yeah, I know.
He's not even mentioning what the thing is. He's completely dismissed what the quotation is. Did you know? Like, oh, the flowers are lovely this spring. Oh, I agree. But did you know Hitler said that? Like, what? That's not. Anyone could say that. That's not the content of what I want to know. What the content is. It doesn't matter who said it. He's literally just enshrined an ad hominem.
Yeah.
Like fallacy.
Yeah, where there was it's like, oh yeah, it was a Eastern Orthodox author,
but it's a material fallacy to who said it. It doesn't matter who said it if something's correct. right?
I
Like
know.
to be an Aristotelian, we love our friends, but we love the truth more. If what they say is the truth, it doesn't matter who says it.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
I don't know.
man.
So I don't know what the quote is. It could be something completely wrong. Although it'd be really interesting for this for Peter, however you say his last name, Kovnowski.
I
I've
have
only
no
ever seen it
idea.
written.
Yeah.
Kovnowski. It'd be kind of interesting for him to kind of like just be like,
Like the whole
he
thing
doesn't
is like
know
he's
anything.
the whole episode he's just like riffing on this one short passage of this video where
With the
he's
beginning
quoting
part. Is it
someone.
just the
Yeah.
beginning part?
It was just
Well,
the part
that's
that
silly.
they showed. Yeah.
That was a quotation.
Yeah. Okay. But he has this sort of like interpretation of all of like Kowalski's position, where that he doesn't accept sort of kind of like Petrine authority. I mean, he does kind of go into things a little bit more, but it is kind of like hard to actually address what he's doing because he's not actually really engaging with what Peter Kowalski's actually saying. He's just pulling a quote that he quoted.
Yeah.
So
He's giving a talk. He's quoting.
yeah.
He's that citation. I can almost guarantee with my powers of nothing because I have no authority. I can almost guarantee what he's really talking about is, hey, look, we're in a rough situation.
This is what people are coming to. Well, let's watch a little bit longer because
his
like
Eastern Orthodox understanding of the papacy, which is not the Catholic understanding of the papacy, which I found to be incredibly amusing because it just showed what we already knew, and that is that Kwasniewski does not hold to a Catholic understanding of
We
the papacy,
already knew,
but rather holds to an
But
Eastern.
like this is exactly what he's saying about like people with like Pope Francis, that people are viewing the papacy of Pope Francis with this lens that they already know that he's like heterodox, and so that they read everything about him in that he says in a heterodox way, even though when he's saying might not be heterodox if you read it in a certain way. Like he's doing the exact same thing to Kwasniewski here. Like exactly.
There's a couple things where like I don't know how you read them without I don't know. Do you go on a roller coaster and like slam 5 beers and read it so you're in a better mood or something? Like all the blood rushes to your head. Is that what you do? I don't understand.
I don't know. I mean, let's
Eastern Orthodox understanding.
I don't
of the
understand what
papacy, which is why I always
perspective
wonder why
of,
continue to remain Catholic. Why not just go
like, what
to
does
one?
he believe that the Catholic perspective of the papacy is? Because there's more than one. Like he always like points it as if there is the Catholic perspective of the papacy. But
How
it seems to
dare
be-
you? I have all the true opinions collected within my own person. And I know
Yes.
everything about theology. Everything.
Everything, yeah.
Under the Western
Like, I
Rite.
mean, is he sort of like holding to like a strictly sort of like ultramontane sort of position? Is that what he's like kind of maintaining as the Catholic position? It's just very
I think it's something like that actually.
Right.
To be fair to him,
yeah.
I would assume, because it's actually a fairly common position, that whatever the Pope is doing, you don't know better. You don't know what it's like.
You don't know. Yeah.
You don't know. This reminds me a bit of this interaction I had in university where I used to hang out with a bunch of other Catholics. And there was this one fellow who would sometimes show up at the table of Catholics, and he was this difficult individual to deal with on a number of occasions, but erratic, is that the term I want to use? Anyway,
Sure.
he I made a passing comment about how the oblates were not what they once were and weren't very good, and he was like, how dare you, you don't know what it's like, you don't know what it's like to be them, you don't know what they actually do because you're not one of them. I invoke the mandatum of Archbishop or Cardinal? I don't remember. Archbishop Collins, who had been the previous bishop like a decade ago, or Cardinal, like he's in another diocese because he's in Toronto. I invoke the mandatum and I demand that you prostrate yourself before the Blessed Sacrament right now. Go to the chapel and prostrate yourself before the Blessed Sacrament in reparations for what you said. Who are you? You're a layman. Go away.
He'd been invested with the power to give arbitrary penance. Give arbitrary penance.
Yeah.
By the mandatum.
He thought he was like, he thought, yeah, he had been vested divinely. Like, I'm sorry. We have the same rank.
It was like it was his lay apostolate.
His lay apostolate that he made up for himself.
Yeah, like how I was like how I had like the lay apostolate of being a lector as a seminarian.
Yeah, but at least someone was like, "Hey, can you read? Can you?" You didn't just like.
Well, no,
just,
I did actually have like the
No,
bishop
you
like
didn't just,
the
roll...
bishop said something and he said you are now a lector and I'm like okay.
Yeah, I doubt that happened. It would be more like if you just rolled up to daily mass, grabbed the Filipino woman who was about to read St. Paul and just pitched her into the aisle. It was like, I read now.
I am the reader.
I'm sorry. By whose authority do you mandate that I prostrate myself before the Blessed Sacrament in penance? Get out of here. Go away.
All I require is that you kneel. This is like the Xerxes of the campus.
Oh.
You mentioned before that was a horrible depiction of the Persians, though. Like, that they weren't actually
terrible.
Yeah.
First of all, if you read Xenophon, he talks about how the Persian nobility, when the carts got stuck in the mud, they actually got off their horses. They were still in their nice clothes, and they pushed the carts out of the mud. And the Greeks thought it was one of the most amazing things they've ever seen. Like, not only are they just giving her, but like they don't even care about getting dirt on their clothes. They're so noble. Like, it's completely the opposite. It's just like there's such sleazebags in that movie. It's like the Persian nobility were not sleazebags, right? If you read like the line about the Persian proverb, it was like they taught their children to shoot a bow, to ride a horse, and to never tell a lie.
Oh, that's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, those were the three precepts that the Persians imparted to their children, according to the literature.
Yeah.
So yeah, that movie's trash.
But it's tangentially.
And the giant trolls with like hand blades, that was real too. That was all 100% real.
Yeah, and the goat men in the
and the Spartans were so like so noble that they that part of the initiation into manhood was sneaking out at night and murdering a slave.
Yeah, Sparta.
Yeah, woo, Sparta, freedom. We're all about freedom for the Greeks. What about the Helots? Yeah, we're gonna kill them in their sleep, so they better sleep with one eye open, because it's part of our like becoming
gripping
a man
your
ritual
tight.
that you just get gripping your pillow tight. Like it's part of our ritual.
All right, we're definitely getting sidelined. We're talking about Persia and Metallica now. That was like a really but okay, let's just get back to the video. I think that's the best thing that we can do here. No. Here we go. You can still hear it.
Right? Liturgies in the Eastern Orthodox churches, because the Eastern Orthodox have Western Rite liturgies. They have the Roman Rite in
so we're saying, why doesn't it just become a Western Rite Orthodox?
Parishes. So not all of them have the Byzantine liturgy. There is a minority group that are allowed to have the Western Rite liturgy.
Actually, there was a were you there at Mass when there was that priest who was touting the Western Rite liturgy, the Orthodox priest who came over and it's like,
hello, fellow Christians.
Yeah, hello, fellow Christians. It was right after. Who
wants to come to my liturgy in the back of this?
My pharmacy, because he was a
pharmacist.
Was it?
Yeah, it was like it wasn't like a real pharmacy. It was like
Oh, because he was a
Like
naturopath.
take your
yeah,
shirt off and like
naturopath,
take
yeah.
sagebrush and wipe it over your, like it was like a natural healing clinic. You like take sagebrush and shove it up your nostrils, and you like if you sleep with
Yeah.
this gemstone, cancer will go away, and then you die, because it's not how cancer works.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Peter Quadrin's chest, you could join them. You know, that would be
Cool, you know.
great. Yeah. It'd be a great way. But like the thing is, like really bad. Okay, so he goes on to like actually. I'll skip ahead a little bit here because like it actually is kind of it's a bit absurd, like with what he basically with some of the accusations he actually so he says like, okay, here we go. So like, okay, so yeah, here I'll jump ahead to this section here. So
It's like, look, if you believe this about same-sex acts, you know, with Father James Martin, if you really believe this stuff, why not just go Anglican? Just be honest. This isn't consistent with Catholicism. Just go Anglican. I mean, what's the deal? Why continue to remain Catholic? Well, either because one thinks it's compatible with Catholicism, or because they're trying to change the Catholic Church from within. It's one of the two at that point. I don't know. I'm not going to judge the intentions of one's heart and
Very
try to
charitable.
determine which one it is, but it's one of the two at that point. One is either
James
really
Martin,
sincere-
who publicly makes these statements, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Him and his cohorts the benefit of the doubt. Listen, you don't understand. He's a Jesuit. We don't know his internal heart intentions. You know.
no, but he's
might-
comparing Peter Quadrinchevsky to Father James Martin. Like that's the
Yeah, but he's like
yeah.
we don't know his internal intentions, so that's why he doesn't become an Anglican. But this guy should become Eastern Orthodox because he hates the Pope.
Well, no, he's basically taking like a level criticism of both of them. Like he's saying that they're basically the same.
No,
No,
change the church from within.
no.
Wild stuff.
why?
here
How
that
is this?
we're
He's
seeing.
like from
He's,
something
again,
that he's like
saying,
he's quoting
he
another
just quote,
person.
He's ready to risk it all.
He's
You
ready
know,
to
if
risk it all.
Pope Francis gets rid of this particular form of the missal, if he does not allow us to have this particular form of the missal, because there are rumors that he's going to restrict the missal of 62 even further, what Kwasniewski is saying, you know what? We're going to be faithful to the papacy of Gregory the Great, and we're going to be faithful to the Rome of Gregory the Great, and we're going to resist him, even if it means that we have to be labeled schismatics and we have to go to a liturgy outside of communion with Rome. Well, again, congratulations. That's the Eastern Orthodox perspective.
Okay, but is that what
That's
he's saying? Like, should we listen to it again? Like, I feel like he's just like totally gaslighting. Like,
No, he's also skipping over the fact that something like to be in schism, that the communion is broken.
Well, yeah, like okay.
Right.
So actually,
There's
so
no
he
breaking
talks
of
about-
communion, but he's not talking about like the Society of St. Pius X isn't in schism.
So he's talking about he talks about here what is schism. So I think this is probably the most useful, sort of place where we can sort of dissect something besides just pure sort of like rhetoric. Because he calls him a Pharisee, and then he asks about like reversing the Novus Ordo, and
It is not Catholic ecclesiology that he's maintaining.
Yeah.
He's maintaining an
and then
Orthodox-
here he talks about like Trent mentions that the Pope has authority over the Roman Rite, you know, which is obviously true. That's why like the Novus Ordo is valid. It's a valid expression of the Roman Rite, and that's why in a way it's so bad.
Yeah, but but also the like we have to go, if we're gonna go, we can't go back. Pope Benedict said that there's a distinction between both forms now and within the Roman Rite, and that the old liturgy was never abrogated.
Yeah,
because the interpretation coming out of Paul VI was that it was abrogated. So is it going to get abrogated? Stay tuned for the thrilling conclusion of who knows what we're up to.
Understanding. That is Eastern Orthodox understanding of the papacy and ecclesiology.
How they are to accomplish the maintenance of an independent right church.
Independent right church. That's a nice way of saying a church in schism.
That's not what he said.
let me put it like this.
But and isn't he still quoting the other guy at this stage? I don't know. We'll have to watch the clip again.
The Eastern Orthodox who celebrate the Roman Rite, known as the Western Orthodox, they have an independent Rite church. They have an independent Rite church. It's, again, a very nice way of saying a church that is outside of communion with Rome that celebrates this particular expression of the Roman Rite. That's Western Rite, Eastern Orthodoxy, not Catholicism.
But he's not.
Even if this should bring great difficulties, distress of conscience, and the slander
This
of
isn't
being
him.
schismatic.
I imagine it.
Oh no, I think that is. Oh no, wait. Yeah, so is
Is
this
this
whole
part
thing
of the quotation from
we
the
gotta
other
listen to
guy?
We got to listen to this. We got to listen to this thing again because there we have to see where the quote begins and where it ends. Because yeah, that part was a bit strange about saying like whether there's like that there's distressing to people's consciences or something. Here we go.
In the words once again of Michael Charlier,
Mikhail Charlotte. Who's this person? Do you want to
No,
Google
no,
him?
begin
if
quote.
Francis does attempt to completely displace the authentic Roman Rite from the Church of Rome, and if one or more successors should follow him in this, the question will arise sooner rather than later for all who
question
know that
will
this rite
arise.
cannot and must not be abandoned,
Right.
as to how they are to accomplish the maintenance of an independent Rite church, even if this should bring great difficulties, distress of conscience, and the slander of being schismatics. The recognition of such a church of the rite of Pope St. Gregory by the Pope of Rome will then follow someday.
So that's all quote. Everything that he's talking about is a
Yeah.
quote.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I don't see
So
how.
what are we doing here? It's someone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, I don't know. Obedience. Okay, yeah. So Michael Charlier, he's written this book called True Obedience in the Church.
Oh yes. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
That was the one he recently did an article where he referred to the Pope as the Holy Stepfather, which seemed a bit far.
Oh, was that Charlier or was that Kwasniewski?
No, Charlier, I think.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that seems a little
A little ultra
borderline
vires.
schismatic. Yeah.
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 It is a bit of a witty bon mot in the fact that step parents don't care about their children, and a kind of a reference to the bizarre way in which he was elected. Well, it's the bad ones.
Yeah, the bad ones. Yeah, the Cinderella ones.
Like you. You piece of human trash.
Piece human garbage.
You're making them. You're making them clean ashes on the floor. They got holes in their clothes. You're feeding them like week-old bread and cockroaches. What's wrong with you? You make me sick. You disgust me.
Use them as footstools.
Use them as footstools.
One of them. I only use one of them as footstool, while the other one's giving me a pedicure.
Okay,
Oh
can we get to the definition of schism? Because
yeah, I think we need to jump ahead because he's just like oh, this is what the Pharisees are like, they're just like you, but I'm being charitable to you, so you should be grateful.
But swallow this.
Just like you.
Again, God bless them. I want to read something to you. Schism is,
so
according
charitable.
to the Code of Canon Law, the refusal of submission to the Supreme Pontiff or of communion with the members of the church subject to him. You just heard an independent Rite church.
Yeah,
They're
but
willing to go into
not by him.
independent Rite church if necessary. If Pope Francis continues
Hit the pause
to push
button.
this issue.
Hey, so that's cool. The Code of Canon Law is a good source, but that's a pretty general statement. So maybe let's be theologians and not lawyers here, which might hurt because then you can't just
well, we're not theologians.
Quote out of you can't steal a quote out of what is basically a legal dictionary. But let's read what schism is according to St. Thomas Aquinas, ite ad tomum, as a good intellectual in communion with the church might do. As Isidore says in the etymology, schism takes its name from being a scission of minds, and scission is opposed to unity. Wherefore the sin of schism is one that is directly and essentially opposed to unity. For in the moral as in the physical order, the species is not constituted by that which is accidental. Now, in the moral order, the essential is that which is intended, and that which results beside the intention is, as it were, accidental. Hence, the sin of schism is properly a special sin for the reason that the schismatic intends to sever himself from that unity which is the effect of charity. Because charity unites not only one person to another with the bond of spiritual love, but also the whole church in the unity of unity of spirit. Accordingly, schismatics, properly so called, are those who willfully and intentionally separate themselves from the unity of the church, for this is the chief unity, and the particular unity of several individuals among themselves is subordinate to the unity of the church, even
Well,
as
that's
mutual adaptation.
Great,
Mutual sorry. Even as the mutual adaptation of each member of a natural body is subordinate to the unity of the whole body. Now, the unity of the church consists in two things, namely, in the mutual connection or communion of the members of the church, and again in the subordination of all the members of the church to one head, according to Colossians, puffed up by the sense of his flesh and not holding the head, from which the whole body by joints and bands, being supplied with nourishment and compacted, groweth on to the increase of God. Now, this head is Christ himself, who is vice-regent in the church, is the sovereign pontiff. Wherefore, schismatics are those who refuse to submit to the sovereign pontiff and to hold communion with those members of the church who acknowledge his supremacy.
So schismatics acknowledge the supremacy of the authority, but refuse to submit. Is that what he's saying?
They refuse to hold communion with those who acknowledge his supremacy.
I see. Okay.
And they refuse to submit to the sovereign pontiff. Now, the question is, what does submit to the sovereign pontiff actually mean? And that is a very interesting question at this juncture, because we know that the Society of St. Pius X are not in schism, according to the present documents. But
Bishop Strickland
they're not
a schismatic movement. But I
mean,
that's
he's gone over his level of authority. I mean, I stand by Father Zed's Father Zed's position, having worked in these actual departments that dealt with these documents, and having a fair bit of this kind of information at his hands, that they're not in schism as of now.
Yeah, well,
they're in an irregular canonical position. Well, what is an irregular canonical position? Well, they recognize the authority of the Supreme Pontiff. Now, what does the authority of the Supreme Pontiff extend to? And when does the Supreme Pontiff overrun his own authority? Right. Yeah. This goes back to the point about very similar to what Chesterton says about people who are obsessive about nationalism to the point of what we call Jangoism, which is my country right or wrong is like saying my mother drunk or sober. If your mother is running around drunk, you should grab her and restrain her. It's not good for her. The Pope is the vice regent. If he is doing something in contradiction to what Christ has established, what does one do then?
It's a good question.
Well,
what did the people do in former times when, I mean, even though the Pope was, we don't have that much precedence of popes trying to sort of necessarily say questionable theology, or trying to create sort of like an evolutionary, or not an evolutionary, but sort of like this synodal sort of like model of the church. We don't have precedents for that, but we do have precedents of popes acting out. So is there a disciplinary measure for these popes who acted out, like in like the
I don't think that there's a
Etonian emperor?
I don't think that there's a disciplinary measure. Well, I mean, the Etonian emperor was a polite suggestion with a sword tip. Then maybe you should get your act together.
Sure. Right.
Good times. Anything beyond sort of recognizing the Petrine authority, and as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It sort of works a bit like the papal intentions. The popes. When you say rosary for the papal intentions, it doesn't matter what the popes current intentions happen to be, whether or not you agree with them or something. The papal intentions is always for the unity and the
Yeah, they're
the
set
salvation of the
intentions,
souls
yeah.
of the members of the church, the unity of the church, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine to run on the assumption.
Well,
That-
but that is kind of one of the areas where like Dr. Kwasniewski actually kind of shot himself in the foot, because like I remember he had this whole article for LifeSite News where he said, should we pray for the Pope's intentions when we don't know if his intentions are good? I'm just like, I was like, really? Like, I mean, you're supposed to be a philosopher. I mean, do you think that if we pray for the Pope's intentions, God will somehow, like, and some of the intentions are bad, that God will say, oh no, you should have figured out what his intentions were. Now I'm going to answer your prayer, and and then bring sort of like a, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems.
Well,
I
we're
don't know, like,
supposed to be as innocent as a dove and as clever as serpents. One might even say as clever as Jesuits. And the what?
Yeah, well, that wasn't a very clever thing to publish.
No, and a more clever commentary, and many people do, to give the other side to Michael Lofton, to be charitable, actually, instead of badly, to judge someone for their charity. No, that you're not being charitable. Perhaps I should suggest some sort of arbitrary penance. That
It really does remind me of last week, of like kind of the respecting our privacy sort of thing. Like, it's a comparable.
Well, on the other hand,
Yeah. Sorry, I'm derailing you.
people do get really upset about what's going on, and you have to be like completely delusional not to see why. Honestly,
Oh yeah, of course.
Yes, like, so maybe we should cut each other like a lot of slack, because this is a lot of like, this is crazy. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
Hey man, they referred to the Avignon papacy as the Babylonian captivity of the papacy.
Well, yeah.
That's
where the official title. Yeah.
I mean, the King of France just convinced the Pope to let him take all the Templars and burn them at the stake and take all their stuff. Like, they forced confessions out of these guys that are like obviously hogwash.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal.
Like, there's no way you would have had time to do all the things that you listed in this confession.
But you got to support him because he's the Pope. Every prudential decision that he makes.
Every prudential decision ever,
Yeah.
Like that bit you're always fond of quoting, everyone who thinks that the prudential decisions of councils are infallible is 100% in favor of the burning of Jan Hus.
After he's given safe passage.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like giving safe passage. Just
heretics don't get safe passage.
That doesn't apply to heretics. Yeah, like burn. Yeah.
In
the documents. Yeah.
We have to be careful. So why I brought up that passage from St. Thomas is it's about a unity of mind on something. Now, we're in an odd situation where the current pontiff might be off his rocker. Maybe. And then what do you say? Right? But it's for the moral as in the physical order, the species is not constituted by that which is accidental. It's constituted by that which is essential. Well, what is essential? Well, what is essential is the articles of faith.
Of course.
We know what those articles of faith are.
Yeah. I mean, the in the new Advent sort of, but there is like a level of disobedient. See, this is a good article, or a good good paragraph from the New Advent article, which I was kind of skimming through when I was preparing for this episode, and it says here that it is related to heresy. Like, there's it's not the same thing. It's not coterminous with heresy. Saint Jerome says that heresy perverts dogma, while schism by rebellion against the bishop separates from the church. But nevertheless, there is no schism which does not trump up a heresy to justify its departure from the church. But so schism, therefore, is usually mixed, in which case, considered from a moral standpoint, is a perversity, is chiefly due to the heresy which forms part of it. And so, like, the heresy here would be like the denial of papal primacy, which, yeah, the Society of Saint Pius X fully acknowledges.
No, they don't deny papal primacy.
Yeah.
And I bet if you question him without doing the "I got you" as an Eastern Orthodox, if you actually put the question to him about the nature of papal primacy, I'm willing to bet he could give a very cogent answer.
Peter,
what he actually believes with
yeah,
what he actually believes with respect to papal primacy.
Yeah. So in its other aspects,
what does that?
As being purely schism, it is contrary to charity and obedience because it severs the ties of fraternal charity. To the latter, because the schismatics rebels against the divinely constituted hierarchy. However, not every disobedience is a schism. In order to possess this character, it must include the transgression of the commands of superiors, denial of their divine right to command. So that's just it. You have to actually deny that they actually do have divinely attributed authority. On the other hand, schism does not necessarily imply adhesion, either public or private, to a dissenting group or distinct sect. So yes, you could even be part of a dissenting group or a dissenting sect and not necessarily be schismatic yourself. Much less the creation of such a group. Anyone who becomes a schismatic, though desiring to remain a Christian, rebels against legitimate authority without going so as far as the rejection of Christianity as a whole, which constitutes the crime of apostasy. Yeah, so the essential element of it is actually denying the divinely appointed authority of the Pope. But which is interesting though, because we call the Orthodox schismatic, but they do believe in the authority of the papacy, but not the current papacy. That's kind of the distinction that they make. They believe in the authority of the papacy of Gregory, and so it's so it would be very hard to pin down sort of a person and say that they're sort of like explicitly and intentionally schismatic, even though when there obviously are schismatic. That's the problem.
Well, there are questions here too. Can you be in schism with your predecessors as well as a pope? Can you say, no, what the old guy says is that's out, I'm in, and no more old form of the mass, no more. So I have another question too. He says, the supreme authority. Does the Pope have the supreme authority to stop the rites besides the Roman rite?
Well, I mean,
can he say no? The liturgy of St. John Chrysostom is no more.
Well,
pack it up, lads.
Well, I mean, Trent did suppress multiple rites, but just not the ones that had ancient, that were that existed, that were ancient according to custom. That were 200 years or more older.
Yeah,
but I mean,
but that's tradition. That's tradition speaking. That's, as Chesterton says, the democracy of the dead.
Sure, but I don't know. Like, do you? But I don't like. Does the Pope have absolute authority over the liturgy? Like, that's the question that you're asking.
That is a good question. Does he have absolute authority over the liturgy, John? That's a very good question. Does he?
I don't know.
That's the question. That's one of the important questions, because it spills out to the other questions that traditionalists are concerned with. Like, does the Pope, can he tell people who are in a state of mortal sin that they can receive communion?
Well, that's obviously a violation of the divine law. So obviously he can't do that.
Okay.
But the liturgy,
there's some limitations.
Yeah. So so he couldn't change the liturgy if it's a violation of the divine law.
Okay.
But
yeah.
the liturgy is
I see what
ultimately
you're saying. I see what you're saying.
yeah. Because the liturgy is ultimately for us. I mean, God doesn't need the liturgy. So I mean, even so obviously the changes to that were made in the Novus Ordo were valid, even if I don't know about. Like laicity has to do with canon law, and none of us know canon law, so there's no point even discussing that. But we can argue whether or not they're good. I think that the reasons for whether or not they weren't good are much more compelling than that they were good. And and there's a lot of like background behind those reforms that suggest that they weren't
Okay,
good either.
I've got a good
Yeah.
question then. So those members of the Jesuits, after the Jesuits were suppressed, who stayed on and continued to educate despite the fact that they didn't have their specific order, they kept their identity, and they continued to educate in Russia and Prussia.
Sure.
Because in both of those countries, the heads of state were not Catholic and actually refused, to the point where Frederick, the Kaiser in Prussia, had a great line where he says, well, since I am a member of a schismatical sect, I am not bound by my conscience. I'm not bound by church law to disobey my conscience at the will of the Holy Father. And so I will keep the Jesuits in my realm because they are good men and they do good work. A bit of a backhanded insult at the Pope with the Jesuits, sort of like, well, you can't dispense me from following my conscience because I'm not Catholic.
Wow.
And there's a bit there's a bit of that going on right now. Like, how dispensed are we from following our own consciences by the Catholic, right? By the Pope? Does it make us not Catholic because our consciences, as Kronowski says a little bit later, I think as well, that our consciences are deeply bothered by what's going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually the quote was that our consciences would be deeply disturbed if we were to form sort of an independent right, which was what the author that he was but
historically, if you look at historically, before the liberation of the liturgy under Benedict, like, a lot of people's consciences were still deeply disturbed in the society. The members of the society, their consciences were still deeply disturbed.
Right.
Indults were obtained because John Paul II was a very gracious man, and peace was made by some members of the society who left and formed the priestly fraternity of St. Peter, that sort of thing.
Sure.
There was some good work was done there, but how far does your it's sort of like the old bit, right? I live in a place where I can go to a fraternity parish, but what if I lived in the liturgical desert? Where do I take my children? What do I expose them to, right?
Yeah.
What do I show them that the Catholic faith is?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough question.
What do I do? What do I do in the Catholic faith and all of the what do I do with the Catholic faith and the Church Fathers and the Thomas Aquinas? What do I do when that doesn't stack up with what's going on? I'm already worried about the fact that, like, whatever's going on at Rome, is out of control. Like, I have to explain, like, well, what ultimately comes out of this is a kind of a tightening up of. So we're talking about schism, and we're bouncing between a few different things. What ultimately I think is going to come up out of this is more of a definition of papal authority.
Right. Yeah, well, and that's kind of
and what even constitutes schism at this point too. So if 21 Coptic martyrs who aren't in communion with the church can get a commemoration, you know what I mean? Like, if you give permission to if you give permission to the Coptic patriarch to celebrate a liturgy in St. John Lateran, like.
Well, they also gave
Did we
permission
listen to you or
the
not? I don't
Anglicans.
understand. What?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't him, but it wasn't the Pope himself, but the
No.
Anglicans
You're talking about
also,
the
yeah.
Anglicans, but the
Yeah.
patriarch of the patriarch of the Coptic Church has permission.
Yeah,
Full
yeah, I
permission.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
so
I don't think the
What-
Orthodox would be very happy about that.
about what?
About the Coptics having permission to celebrate their liturgy in Rome.
Well, I mean, which Orthodox? Who knows anymore? There's like
Byzantines.
1,000 of them. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, 5 of them that are left.
Yeah.
Well, who do you mean?
There's not
Do
very
you
many of
mean
them,
like
yeah.
do you mean like the crazy like the 5 of them that are left in Turkey, or do you mean like the KGB plant in Russia? Like which Coptic patriarch, or not Coptic, which Eastern Orthodox patriarch are we talking about here? Like there's
true,
quite a
'cause,
number
like,
of them now.
Well, it's true because the Patriarch of Constantinople is basically their version of Pope Francis. You know, he's all into like green energy and humanism.
Yeah. But
Bartholomew.
and then there's all this. Then there's all the we're autocephalous. Hey, you know what else is autocephalous? A tumor.
Yeah.
I am doing my own thing.
Yeah.
Give me your blood.
Well, and that's kind of the pitfall of that author that Kwasniewski is suggesting is it basically is like, I mean, Lofton is right, is that basically what that author is suggesting would be tantamount to sort of Orthodox.
Yeah, it was like sort of a Western right Orthodoxy or something.
Yeah.
But there is also we have something like that isn't independent but is, which is the Society of St. Pius X. And what's going on there? Like no one
knows,
right? So
yeah.
Is that's accident? They're not in schism, so it's an accidental thing.
Yeah.
Then, if we take the Aristotelian line from Thomas here, then it's accidental.
Yeah, but I mean, but they do have yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, but is
Father James Martin accidentally or essentially in schism?
Well, he's essentially. I mean, well, yeah.
Well, no, but he's not being disobedient. He's not been formally censured.
I mean, yeah. So he's heretical. He's not schismatic. Yeah, but I mean, obviously, there's benefits to actually being sort of part of an ecclesiastical like structure and hierarchy that have affected the day-to-day outlook and expression of the SSPX, and the way that they sort of understand doctrine as well. Because I was so flabbergasted, that they actually held that that it's better not to attend Sunday liturgy at all than to go to a Novus Ordo. But in the same video, when they're describing this, you have to go to a Novus Ordo for the example of like a wedding, then just pray the rosary during it instead. So it's like, so it was so bad law. We're flickering in and out right now. Oh, connection is unstable. Oh, okay. Are you there? You can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, but if you to follow like, I mean, this is clearly pretty like at least poor formation, if not poor theology, to say that you need to follow a social convention, but you don't necessarily have to follow the divine law. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on. People are a little, they're losing it out there. They're getting a little loopy.
Oh, I know, yeah. But I mean, that just seems like, and yeah, it's true. But yeah, I mean,
I mean,
Father,
that's why we should grant a big old bucket of charity to Michael Lofton.
oh yeah,
because he's,
well, I think like
he spends too
Lefebvre
much
himself.
time on the internet. He spends too much time on the internet, and it's someone needs to be like, hey, don't.
Don't do that. Yeah. Well, like
But I mean,
Lefebvre himself
it's like
did go
it's like
pretty loopy over this stuff, right? Like he became like if Father Bissex's testimony is right, and I believe that he is, he's not lying, that that Lefebvre really was like actually a sedevacantist after the CC conference. That he said, like, after he witnessed what happened, he's just like, oh, we don't have
oh
the
man,
Pope
we can
anymore.
do so much worse.
Than having a sedevacantist. Yeah, I mean, sure, yeah,
We
obviously.
can bring idols into the church.
Yeah. That's it's. But I mean,
Hey man, the correct response was just to pick them up and throw them in the river. That was the correct response.
Well, they did do that in the CC conference as well. They put Buddha statues on top of the tabernacle in St. Peter's.
Well, the correct response would have been to pick them up and throw them in the river.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, actually, that's probably worse than what happened in the Amazonian sin, because there's also like the sin of sacrilege to put it on top of the tabernacle. Like that's worse than when they put it on the altar, like the Pachamama bowl or whatever with the dirt in it. But we're getting into a bit too much of Taylor Marshall territory here. I think this is kind of Team Mizzle territory. Yeah.
Yeah. The I don't think he's from one speech that he's like, he's being a little clickbaity here. I don't think he's like on the edge of schism, but he's certainly entertaining the possibilities of what's happening right now, which is like a bit of a nightmare for people who bother to pay attention more closely than they ought. Yeah, it's wild stuff, man. Wild stuff.
Well, I mean, the reality is too, though, that like we don't know what God is doing in the midst of this. We know that God is in control, and we kind of like the more sort of there is actually kind of a truth to what like Nietzsche said, that like the more that you stare into the abyss stares into you, and so it can become a form of temptation to sort of like look into this like void of your computer monitor and trying to absorb all this knowledge, and it's
what we do.
But yeah.
What we do know, though, is that with his recent statements that he gave to the Hungarian Jesuits when he was in Hungary, Pope Francis was in Hungary, we do know that he explicitly connects indiatrismo, backwardism, and restorationism, the nostalgic disease of desiring the old form of the Roman Rite, is directly connected to morality.
Oh, really?
He establishes that it's directly connected to the way that we live our lives. And we are rejecting the advancements of modernity as traditionalists. We're not advancing with the modern world, John. We're backwards. What does that mean? Well, there's many not good things. The sexual revolution.
Yeah. Many,
Many not good things came with modernity, which, by the way, are rejected by traditionalists. And so he gets it, because at the beginning of his papacy, he didn't care. But then at some point he realized this isn't just lex orandi, lex credendi, lex vivendi, right?
Yeah.
Lex orandi, lex credendi, lex vivendi. Those are the three things. Then they all follow in a straight line. And he knows that people who hold to this are not going to be amenable to Amoris Laetitia. They're not going to be amenable to Tutti Frutti. They're not going to be on board with a bunch of these, they're not going to be like raw Amazon synod. They're not going to be into the synod and synodality. They're not going to like any of this stuff, and they're going. It's not just that they're going to not like it; it's that they're going to reject it, and they're going to pass the rejection on to their children. They're going to resist.
Yeah.
And the horror of it all is that they're going to outlive him.
Right.
And they're going to, like, if it's young families showing up at the Latin Mass, man, they're going to outlive all these guys.
Yep.
And then it'll just be a whiff of dust. The Novus Ordo will be a historical footnote in a textbook about liturgy in 200 years.
I've yet to sort of like see a comprehensive sort of like defense for sort of like the whole sort of like platform of what Pope Francis is sort of like standing for, like because like guys like Michael Lofton will sort of like he'll break down parts of it and say like, no, this is an uncharitable interpretation. It's like, but look at the documents as the whole, like look at like like you can even just look at one document that sort of encompasses sort of the whole direction, like sort of Evangelium Gaudium, and sort of
but
say,
he clipped that speech. He clipped that speech.
He clipped that
speech of Kwasniewski, and like, no, but he's not saying this. He's quoting someone else. What are his own words? And again, the thing on Facebook, I got you. That was an Eastern Orthodox someone.
Yeah.
Like, well, what was the quote? It's about actually laying out the information, and what we're doing here is not doing. We're doing the opposite of that. What are we doing?
It's
right?
Obfuscation.
Well, this is sort of like a dance. So that's how you get around it, right? You just dance around the subject, and hopefully it solves itself at some point. And traditionalists are annoying, and they're like, "What is the answer?" That's an annoying thing to do when someone's trying not to give you a straight answer.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for a lot of, I think that the best move for traditionalists is, just don't even bother to ask for the answer. Just go look it up and live your life. And wait.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Just wait. Don't go on Twitter and start a Twitter war. No. Go read the Summa.
Yeah.
Learn Latin. Educate yourself. Educate your children. Cultivate piety. Wait. Just wait. What, in the immortal words of Captain Jack Sparrow, wait. Opportune moment.
I should get the clip of him like on his pirate ship where he's just like on the mast.
Confident.
That's it. Yeah, just the confident docking.
Confident.
Yeah.
As it like sinks into the dock. He just like walks off.
Yeah.
Confident, calm, cool, collect. That's what we got to be like. Calm, cool, collected. Everything's fine. It'll all be fine. Just do what you're supposed to do. You don't have to worry about the stuff. Anything that's beyond your pay grade is not your problem. It could be an interesting, like this podcast, it could be an interesting recreational discussion. Yeah. But when this turns off, I'm not going to care about any of those things. I have other things in my life.
It's very true. So
what is that stupid PSA from when we were kids where the TV's talking to you? It's like, you have so many options. You can go outside. You have books and something, and you can go outside and play. Ugh.
Check this out, y'all. Read a book, read a book, read a book, read a book.
I don't think that was the PSA.
No, but I just wanted to play that because
it was another. It's a Canadian thing, so I don't think it played in other countries. But it was like a TV, and it was like, I'm just the TV. You're the smart one, and it would try to teach kids like, don't believe everything you see on TV.
Yeah.
Don't believe everything you read on the internet. And just the Palantir, just just put it away.
Just put it away. Yeah.
Don't Sauron yourself, lads.
Yeah, that's
Don't
the
soar 'em on
takeaway. If you can
yourself.
remember anything, don't soar 'em on yourself.
Don't soar them on yourself. Just like just walk away from it.
And
just,
don't Denethor yourself either.
yeah, don't Denethor yourself. Yeah, that's even that's a bad one too. You know,
Yeah.
don't light yourself on fire. Don't
No.
light other people on fire.
It's a bad idea.
You know, just like walk
We
away and
have
be like,
no
you know
hope.
what?
Yeah. No,
Just
we
got
do
to
have hope.
Tom Bombadil your way through life, lads.
That's the way. That's the
That's
way.
the way. You got to be like Merry and Pippin, smoking pipes at the gate of Isengard. You know, having a pint. They're like, you know, there was a big battle and now we're having fun. And I'm like, we got to get the ring to Mordor. What are you doing?
Yeah, I kind of like the Tom Bombadil way even better. Who's just like, he just puts like the ring on his finger and it does nothing to him. It's just like he's so detached. He's just like, wow, whatever. Yeah. Puts on his boots and just stomps all over the barrel whites.
I mean, for now, if you're in a place where you have access to the old mass, for now you can just be Tom Bombadil.
Yeah.
You know, it's beyond your it's beyond what's he gonna do in the future? There's scripture passages about this, you know, like there's stuff in the gospel. Just calm down.
Well, and also like once we're like, if we actually do like advance in our spiritual life and like, you know, live in and eventually like achieve like the unity of way. Plus, like God's like pointing out so many graces right now. He actually he wants us to live this way. I mean, like there's like, you know, we have to empty our desires and to, you know, grow in holiness. And there's a process for doing that. But I mean, it doesn't really. Then once we're in the unity of way, our circumstances don't matter like at all.
Yeah, I'm not getting there. Let's
hey, that's
settle
despairing.
down.
It's despairing, man. That's
not despair. I've set my sights practical level. Hopefully I'm gonna make a good purgative death.
Well, that's kind of like, I mean, that's kind of the nice. I mean, but remember what Saint Therese like said to her fellow sister, who said it's just like, oh, she had a similar sort of like outlook, and she said it's like, oh no, like this, there's no way I can avoid purgatory, and then sort of. And Saint Therese just said, "It's like no, like what are you talking about? Like there's, of course you can." And so the sister actually, you know, was revealed to Saint Therese later, and you know, was kind of like upset because she realized that she was right, that she could actually have avoided purgatory in this life, and that's the only way to live. I mean, otherwise, because if you're going to be living in, you know, like you know, going back and forth in the purgative way, it's kind of a miserable life. I mean, you can enjoy like the physical benefits, but like you'll never have, you know, the peace that God desires for us.
I'm being facetious.
I know you are.
You're ruining the facetious. I'm wearing an ascot and drinking a martini, and I don't have the letter A in my sign, and we're on a podcast called The Catholic Scallywag.
That's
and
true.
Here you are.
And you chose to keep you chose to keep the A in Scallywag instead of Catholic.
You are
You're
getting all maudlin on me.
But speaking of purgatory, you got to remember,
you will receive your reward in purgatory.
All right. Good night,
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.